Told you that while families were frantically calling loved ones, while a community held its breath in disbelief, while investigators worked around the clock searching for answers, the person connected to one of the most horrifying events in recent memory was doing something so mundane, so ordinary, that it reveals a truth we rarely want to confront. What if I told you that evil doesn't announce itself with thunder and lightning, but often walks past us in grocery store aisles, sits next to us at traffic lights, and exists in spaces we consider safe? What if the scariest thing about this case isn't just what happened in those early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, but how easily darkness can wear the mask of normalcy? Before we dive deep into this case, if you're drawn to stories that explore the darkest corners of human behavior, that ask difficult questions about justice, memory, and the nature of evil itself, then you need to subscribe to Dark Trail Files right now. This isn't just another true crime channel. This is where we examine the psychological landscapes that others overlook, where we sit with uncomfortable silences, and where we honor victims by refusing to sensationalize their stories. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Now, let's walk this dark trail together. Moscow, Idaho, a college town where everyone seemed to know everyone, where students felt safe enough to leave doors unlocked, where parents sent their children believing they'd found a community that would protect them. November 13th, 2022, shattered that illusion forever. Four vibrant young people, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were taken from this world in an act of violence so brutal, so senseless, that it defied comprehension. They were students with futures ahead of them, dreams in progress, lives unfolding with all the promise that early adulthood holds. Kaylee Goncalves, 21 years old, had just secured a job in Austin, Texas, and was preparing for the next chapter of her life. She was adventurous, loyal, and had a smile that could light up any room. Her family describes her as someone who lived fully, who loved deeply, who approached life with enthusiasm and courage. She had completed her degree and was ready to leave Moscow behind for new opportunities. That future was days away. Madison Mogen, also 21, was Kaylee's best friend and roommate. The two had been inseparable since they met. Madison had already earned all the credits necessary for her degree. She had worked hard, stayed focused, and achieved what she set out to accomplish. She was ready to graduate, ready to celebrate, ready to begin whatever came next. Her father would later speak about how proud he was of her dedication, her kindness, her ability to bring joy to everyone around her. Xana Kernodle, 20, was known throughout her community as someone who was genuinely kind to everyone she met. She was funny, warm, and had a gift for making people feel valued. Her sister would describe her as everyone's best friend, the person you called when you needed support, the person who showed up without being asked, the person whose presence made difficult things easier. She had that rare quality of making others feel seen. Ethan Chapin, 20 years old, stood 6'4" with a presence that was both gentle and joyful. He was a freshman, still finding his way, still discovering who he was becoming. His family remembers him as someone who rarely took things too seriously, who had a goofy sense of humor, who could lighten any mood. He was dating Xana, and those who knew them said they brought out the best in each other. He had his whole life ahead of him, college to finish, experiences to have, a person to become. And then, in the space of moments that we still cannot fully comprehend, everything changed. For young people who had gone to sleep believing they were safe, who had no reason to fear, who were simply living their ordinary lives, were taken. The violence was extreme. The loss was absolute. And the questions that followed would haunt not just their families, but an entire nation watching this case unfold. When terror enters someone's life, language often fails. The gaps between words become as important as the words themselves. What follows is the sound of a world breaking apart in real time. Listen not just to what's said, but to what cannot be said.
Number 13, 2022.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the light, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah.
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, but we gotta go check. But we have to. Is he passed out? What's wrong? She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, me too. What's wrong?
Okay, and how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20 years old.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Hey, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
Okay.
Dude, talk to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
Hello.
Okay. I've already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
Say that again? There's a police here right now.
Okay. If there's a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have it. Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, you have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
11:59 a.m.
The call that came in that morning wasn't just a plea for help. It was the sound of reality fracturing. In those pauses, in the trembling breath, in the spaces where words should have been but couldn't form, that's where you hear the full weight of trauma. Silence in these moments isn't empty. It's heavy with everything the human mind cannot yet process. It's shock trying to organize itself into language. It's fear searching for words that don't exist. 2 roommates survived that night. Think about that. 2 young women who went to sleep in what they believed was safety, who woke to a nightmare, who heard sounds they couldn't identify, who saw something that would alter the trajectory of their entire lives. Survival doesn't end when the threat leaves. Survival is waking up every day after, carrying memories that won't stay still, answering questions about moments your brain tried to protect you from remembering. Here's what haunts me about this case. While investigators were processing one of the most horrific crime scenes they'd ever encountered, while families were receiving phone calls that no parent should ever receive, while a community was locking doors that had never been locked before, life elsewhere continued exactly as it always had. Hours after 4 lives ended, security cameras in a big box store captured routine footage that would later become evidence. Watch how normalcy and horror can exist in the same timeline, separated only by knowledge. Shopping carts rolled. Price scanners beeped. Employees stocked shelves. Customers moved through aisles, selecting items for their ordinary lives. And among them, captured by cameras that record everything and judge nothing, was Bryan Kohberger. Not running. Not hiding. Shopping. This is the disconnect that should terrify us. How often are we sharing space with someone whose recent actions would horrify us if we knew? How many times has danger been 3 feet away in a checkout line, and we had no idea? The camera doesn't react because the camera doesn't know. And neither did anyone else in that store. This isn't about one person. This is about the uncomfortable truth that society operates on the assumption of innocence until proven otherwise, which means we unknowingly coexist with people whose private realities would shatter our sense of safety if we could see them. The world doesn't pause for individual tragedies. It keeps spinning. People keep shopping. Traffic keeps flowing. And sometimes, the person responsible for unspeakable acts is standing right there, indistinguishable from everyone else. December 21st, 2022. A routine traffic stop. An officer doing his job correctly, professionally, by the book. He has no way of knowing that the person in the passenger seat is connected to an investigation that's captivating the nation. Watch how close authority can come to truth without recognizing it.
I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so I was
behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep. You just get this for you out.
You what?
I'm just going to get this out for you.
Okay.
Would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in the intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done?
You're not supposed to block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there's a little bit of confusion with speeding, because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. Mm-hmm. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through. Oh. Did you see that?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right, and they didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up, and not.
I don't know if there's a best thing to do in that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody, or you're going to run a red light. So, or you'll be sitting in an intersection. There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just sliding into the crosswalk, so where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle, place your vehicle.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through, and you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah. One second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Okay. So I'm not writing a ticket or anything like that today. I understand you're from Pennsylvania, but in the future, don't proceed through the intersection. You can't get stopped for that alone unless you can clearly just clear it right away. Okay.
So then basically, I understand.
You're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time, but
it never even occurred to me that that was actually something wrong. But well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what I went through.
And states vary from laws. Like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to
No, not at all. Like I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like I only know it because this is what I do, but yeah. If you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in like legal language, but hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hello. How y'all doing? Good. Take your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on the van, man. He's right up on the back of that van. You're over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay. Cool. Where you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU. And we're standing.
What's WSU?
University, basically. That is SWAT team area.
So I'm having a hard time reading because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going there? Oh.
We're going to be going today.
Oh, okay.
We're flying to drive hours.
Hours, days.
Right.
Okay.
This footage is haunting for what it represents. Here's a law enforcement officer conducting a standard traffic stop. He's polite, professional. He's following procedure. Bryan Kohberger is in the passenger seat next to his father. They've been pulled over for speeding. Papers are checked. A warning is issued. The interaction ends. Everyone drives away. But we, watching this later, know what the officer didn't. We sit in dramatic irony. That literary device where the audience possesses knowledge the characters lack. Except this isn't literature. This is real. This officer was inches away from someone who would later be charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. And he had no reason to know. No basis to suspect. Nothing to act on. This is the reality of investigation work. Truth reveals itself in fragments. Over time, through painstaking analysis and connection of details. In that moment, on that roadside, there was no truth to see. Just a father and son driving cross-country. Just a routine stop. Just another entry in an officer's daily log. How many times does truth pass us by? Invisible, waiting for the right moment to emerge. How often are we one question away from revelation and don't know to ask it? January 5th, 2023. Bryan Kohberger appears in an Idaho courtroom for the first time since his arrest. This is where the public gets its first real look at the person accused of taking 4 lives. Watch the stillness, the control, the absence of visible emotion.
Oh, we got it. We took care of it. Yes.
$50,000 fine or both. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life.
Courtrooms are theaters of a particular kind. Everyone knows their role. The accused sits in a specific place. The attorneys stand where they're supposed to stand. The proceedings follow a script refined over centuries of jurisprudence. But beneath the formality, beneath the legal language and procedural requirements, there's something else happening. There's a performance of composure. Look at the micro-expressions, the posture, where the eyes focus, what the hands do. These aren't just physical positions. They're choices about how to be perceived. In court, silence can communicate more than words. Stillness can be interpreted as either calm or calculation. The absence of visible emotion becomes something for observers to project meaning onto. Bryan Kohberger sat through these proceedings with notable composure. He listened to charges that carried the possibility of execution. He heard prosecutors outline their case. He understood the magnitude of what he faced, and he remained controlled. Detached, some would say. Others might argue he was simply exercising his right to remain silent, to not incriminate himself, to let his attorneys do their job. This is the challenge of observation. We see behavior, but we cannot see motivation. We see expression, but we cannot see thought. The courtroom reveals legal facts. It doesn't reveal psychological truth. Months passed. The case moved through the pretrial phase with motions, hearings, procedural battles. Each appearance offered another opportunity to observe, to analyze, to search for something, anything that might explain the inexplicable.
All right.
All right, good morning. We are on the record. 29222805. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger is in custody. He is appearing here in court with his attorneys, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logsdon, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings appearing on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for the preliminary hearing status conference. So I am going to inquire of counsel. Ms. Taylor, what's the status at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June. We would request the 3rd or 4th week of June and probably 4 or 5 days for preliminary hearing. Mr. Kohberger understands his right to a timely preliminary hearing, and he's willing to waive the timeliness to allow us time to obtain discovery in this case and be prepared.
And Mr. Thompson, are you in agreement with that?
The state has no objection to that, Your Honor. Ms. Taylor reached out to us by email yesterday with her proposal. On reflection, the state's calendar would be better in the month of July, but we will make the end of June work if that's the court's preference. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Ms. Taylor about that. I'm sorry, I know that's last minute.
That's okay. The court's calendar is going to be better towards the end of June, early July. So would that work, Ms. Taylor, for your scheduling on your other matters?
Your Honor, yes. If we take that 4th week in June, that's actually best.
Okay. So, Mr. Kohberger, I need to speak to you for a moment then. Sir, you do understand, and Ms. Taylor has represented here, that she's advised you of your right to have, or fully discussed with you the right that you have, which is to have your preliminary hearing within 14 days of the date that you initially appeared before this court. As you recall, when I advised you of your rights, that hearing is a probable cause hearing where the state has to establish that more likely than not, these felony offenses were committed and you were the one that committed the felony offenses. If you waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing, it does not mean that you're giving up your right to have a preliminary hearing. It simply means that you would not be able to come back and challenge that the state did not present probable cause within 14 days. Do you understand?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with Ms. Taylor about your decision to waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
Do you need any additional time to do so?
No.
Then I will ask at this time, as to the 5 counts, felony counts that were charged in the criminal complaint that was filed on December 29th of 2022, are you waiving your right to a speedy preliminary hearing and agreeing that that hearing can be held outside the 14-day period?
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, do you concur with his waiver?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you.
I will find your waiver of speedy preliminary hearing is knowing, intelligently, voluntarily entered here in open court with the assistance of counsel. We will go ahead and set the matter for a preliminary hearing. Beginning Monday, June 26th at 9:00 a.m. And I will go ahead and reserve the week, so June 26th to June 30th, in the event that we need all 5 days for presentation of evidence. And just so council knows, it will begin at 9 a.m. each of those days. Is there anything further to address at this time in the case, Mr. Thompson?
Not from the state's perspective, Your Honor, no.
All right. Or Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kohberger, then you will be remanded into custody on your same no bail at this point in time, pending further proceedings. Again, we'll send notice out to council, and we will be in recess for this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Status hearings are typically routine. They're about scheduling, about legal technicalities, about the administrative machinery that keeps the justice system functioning. But in high-profile cases, every appearance becomes scrutinized, every moment analyzed. People search for clues in posture, in glances, in the smallest gestures. And yet, what do we actually learn? That someone can sit through legal proceedings without visible distress? That composure under pressure can be maintained? That silence is a right exercised? The truth is, these moments tell us more about our need to understand than they do about the person we're observing. We want explanations. We want to see remorse or defiance, guilt or arrogance, something that helps us categorize, that gives us a framework for processing the unprocessable. But sometimes we're given nothing, and we have to sit with that absence. But what happens when the silence finally breaks? What happens when the legal strategy shifts, when the calculus changes, when the person who has said nothing for years suddenly speaks? The answer would come in July 2025, and it would shock everyone who'd been following this case. But before we get there, we need to understand what the survivors carried with them. 3 days after the murders, investigators spoke with Bethany Funk, one of the surviving roommates. She recounted the timeline of that final day, the ordinary moments that preceded the unthinkable. Listen to how trauma affects memory, how the mind tries to organize chaos into narrative.
She just knocked on my door, I think, during the last. I had breakfast and
Then what happened after that?
I just went to bed, and then I woke up and I was like half asleep, and I thought I saw like a firework or something, like it just sparkled like under my door, and then I thought I heard like something kind of fall. I wasn't working bark, but I thought people were just making like maybe like an Ethan was here or something and knocked something over because he's usually loud in the kitchen those things.
Okay. So what do you mean by you heard a firework?
It sounded like a little firework, and then there was like a spark. I went by my I'm on the bottom floor.
Okay.
So it kind of looked like it came down there, but I don't know.
Murphy your dog?
Kaylee's dog.
Kaylee's dog?
Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend.
Okay. So you heard Murphy bark right after you heard what you thought was a firecracker?
But yeah, something like that. Like, I don't know, dogs bark at random things. And sometimes when he's happy, he'll bark.
Okay. It didn't sound like an angry growl or anything like that, just a bark?
I don't really know. I was like half asleep.
Okay.
It just sounded like bark.
So hear the firework, kind of see a spark underneath the door. Murphy barks. What'd you hear after that?
Pretty much nothing. That's it.
Okay. And you thought maybe someone was just in the kitchen at that point?
Yeah, just like someone accidentally fell into the table or something.
Okay.
And she was like, it would be
Do you know about what time that might have been? Do you have any idea?
4 or something. I tried to call all of them at like 4:20ish. Around that time, and no one was answering. I thought they just went to bed or something.
Okay. What happened after that?
Called me, and she said she thinks she saw someone. And I didn't know, like, really what to think of it, because sometimes we think we hear things a lot in the house, but it's usually just Ethan walking around. But she came, I told her to come in my room, and she could sleep with me, and we could lock the door, and just stay in there just in case if there was anything, and that's all I knew. And I fell back asleep.
You didn't hear anything else?
Mm-hmm.
No one else talking? Okay. Did you get to your room then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What time do you think she got in your room?
Like 4:20, 4:30.
Okay, about the same time.
Yeah.
Where's her room located to yours?
I'm the only one on the bottom floor, right by the front door.
Okay.
And then you go up the stairs, and Xana's room, and his room, the kitchen, and then upstairs is mine and Kim's.
Okay. And where's the room?
Right by the kitchen.
Right by the kitchen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did she say anything to you when she got into the room?
She said she thought she saw a man, but I didn't know what to think of it. I was like still half asleep, and I was like, I didn't know what to, I don't know. Okay. It didn't sound like I didn't hear screams, I didn't hear anything, so I didn't really know.
Okay. Okay. But obviously she didn't say anything more than she just saw someone.
No, that's all I remember.
Bethany Funk described the sequence of events leading up to that night. The normal activities, the routine interactions, the last time she saw her friend alive. This is what investigators needed: a timeline, a structure, a framework for understanding what happened and when. But memory under trauma doesn't work the way we often assume. It's not a video recording that can be played back with perfect accuracy. It's a reconstruction. It's fragments that the brain has prioritized for survival, edited for protection, organized in ways that allow the person to function. When someone experiences something overwhelming, the mind does triage. It keeps what it can handle and walls off what it cannot. This is why witness testimony evolves. Not because people are lying, but because memory itself is a living thing that changes with time, with processing, with the safety to remember what was too dangerous to fully experience in the moment. Bethany was asked to recall details while still in the acute phase of trauma. Her brain was still protecting her from the full weight of what had happened. The other surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, told investigators she saw a man in a mask with bushy eyebrows walking through the house that night. Think about the courage it takes to speak that sentence. To admit you saw something. To know that your testimony might be the detail that breaks the case open. To live with the questions that follow. Why didn't I do more? Why didn't I know? Why did I survive when they didn't? These aren't rational questions. Trauma isn't rational. Survivor's guilt doesn't respond to logic. You can know intellectually that you did nothing wrong, that you couldn't have known, that you survived by chance and not by choice. But knowing doesn't stop the questions from coming in the quiet moments. For 2.5 years, these young women carried their memories in relative privacy. They had avoided the spotlight, tried to rebuild their lives, attempted to process the unprocessable. But in July 2025, everything would change. The case would reach its conclusion in a way that almost no one anticipated. And for the first time, Dylan Mortensen would speak publicly about what she experienced. But before that moment arrived, the legal landscape shifted dramatically. July 2nd, 2025. After years of preparation for what was expected to be one of the most closely watched trials in American history, Bryan Kohberger's defense team approached prosecutors with a request. They wanted to discuss a plea agreement. The news sent shockwaves through the families and the community. This was not the outcome many had anticipated. For 2.5 years, everyone had been preparing for a trial, a public airing of evidence. The possibility of the death penalty loomed over every hearing. But now, suddenly, everything was changing. Some families were blindsided. The Goncalves family issued a statement saying prosecutors had mentioned a possible plea on Friday, which they called a hard no. They were adamant. They wanted their day in court. Then on Monday, they received a letter saying Kohberger's defense had requested a plea offer the previous week. The timeline felt rushed. The consultation felt inadequate. They felt failed by a system they had trusted. The anger was palpable. They had waited years for justice and justice in their minds. Amid a trial, public accountability, answers under oath, and the possibility of the ultimate punishment. A plea deal felt like a shortcut, like Kohberger was avoiding the full weight of public judgment. Other families felt differently. Members of the Mogen and Chapin families said they were okay with the deal. They understood the pragmatic realities. A trial meant years of appeals, reliving the worst moments in a public courtroom, watching defense attorneys challenge every piece of evidence. It meant uncertainty, because juries are unpredictable. And even with strong evidence, a single juror might vote differently. The death penalty itself was complicated. Idaho had recently made firing squad its preferred execution method, a change some of the Goncalves family had helped pass. But even if a jury voted for death, that sentence would trigger decades of automatic appeals. Kohberger could spend 20 or 30 years on death row, with families reliving everything at each appeal hearing. The plea deal offered certainty. Bryan Kohberger would plead guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. Prosecutors would not seek the death penalty. Kohberger would receive 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 10 years for burglary. And crucially, he would give up his right to appeal. No years of legal battles. No overturned convictions. No possibility of release. Bryan Kohberger would enter prison and die there. That was now absolute. This is the reality when multiple families are involved. Not everyone wants the same outcome. Not everyone defines justice the same way. And prosecutors, caught between these competing needs, had to make decisions based on legal strategy. The law is clear. Victims' families have a right to be heard, but not to determine the outcome. On July 2nd, 2025, Bryan Kohberger stood in court and pleaded guilty. He admitted to the murders. He accepted responsibility for the burglary. He waived his rights to appeal. The deal was done. But a guilty plea doesn't come with explanations. It doesn't include a motive. It doesn't provide the detailed confession that families desperately wanted. It's a legal transaction, an admission of fact without the context of why. And that absence became its own kind of torture for those left behind. 3 weeks later, on July 23rd, the courtroom would become a space for something the legal system rarely provides. The opportunity for those left behind to speak their truth directly to the person who shattered their worlds. What happened in that courtroom over the course of 3 hours would be one of the most emotionally devastating displays of grief ever witnessed in an Idaho court. And for the first time, the public would hear from the survivors themselves. Sometimes the weight of what you need to say is too heavy to carry alone. Sometimes someone else has to speak your pain because forming the words yourself would break you. This is secondhand grief, the emotional labor of being the voice for someone who survived but cannot yet speak.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be speaking on behalf of Bethany, and so, yeah, here it reads. My name is Bethany Funk, and I was roommates with Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. I not only lost some of my best friends, but I also lost a sister. Never in a million years would I have thought that something like this would have happened to my closest friends. I thought that we were going to wake up and go upstairs, see them and tell them how they had scared us and that they were going to tease us about how we were constantly scaredy cats. And make jokes about it as we would go to Taco Bell like always. But sadly, that is not what happened and what turned out to be my worst nightmare. When I first woke up that morning, I had no idea what happened. I woke up around 7 with a terrible toothache, so I called my dad, who is a dentist, and he asked what I should do. He told me to take Advil, so I did, and I went back to sleep. I was still out of it and still didn't know what happened. If I had known, I of course would have called 911 right away. I still carry so much regret and guilt for not knowing what had happened and not calling right away, even though I understand it wouldn't have changed anything, not even if the paramedics had been right outside the door. I was so frantic that morning and scared to death, not knowing what had happened. And when I made the 911 call, I couldn't even get out the words. And from then on, I don't remember a thing. It was like my brain wiped that whole memory. That was the worst day of my life. And I know it always will be. While I was still in shock, trying to process the fact that my friends were truly gone, I had been attacked by the public. I was grieving, numb, and unsure of what had happened was even real. And at the same time, I was getting flooded with death threats and hateful messages from people who did not know me at all or know the dynamic of our friendship. Social media made it so much worse, and strangers made up stories to entertain themselves. The media harassed not just me, but also my family. People showed up at our house. They called my phone, my parents' phones, other family members' phones, and we were chased while I was still trying to survive emotionally and grieve the loss of my friends. I hated and still hate that they are gone, but for some reason, I am still here and I got to live. I still think about this every day. Why me? Why did I get to live and not them? For the longest time, I could not even look at their families without feeling sick with guilt. I did not know what to say or what to do. I was terrified that my presence just made their pain worse. And I was still here when their kid, their siblings and their friends, their loved ones should have been here instead. After everything happened, I was afraid to go into my own backyard or alone in my house. I was scared that the person who did this would come for me next. I was always scared that the media would try to catch me at any moment of any day, even when I was just walking around my house. I made my parents close all the blinds during the day so no one could see me even in the slightest chance. I barely left the house, and when I did, I made sure I was never alone. I slept in my parents' room for almost a year. I made them double lock every door, set an alarm, and still check everywhere in the room just in case someone was hiding. And I still check my room every night before, and I double lock it. I have not slept through a single night since this happened. I constantly wake up in panics, terrified. Someone is breaking in, or someone is here to hurt me, or I'm about to lose someone else that I love. The fear never really leaves. For a long time, I could barely get out of bed, but one day I realized I have to live for them. They did not get the chance to keep living, but I do, and I will not take that for granted. So now every day I remind myself to live for them, and everything I do it with them in mind. I am still scared to go out in public, but I force myself to do things because I know that they would want me to keep living my life to the fullest. I am beyond blessed to still be here, and I refuse to take that for granted when they did not get a chance. Our house was not just a house, it was a home. It was where we laughed till we couldn't breathe, make meals, did crafts, binge watch reality shows, played games, and spent lazy days on the couch. It was movie nights, wine nights, morning debriefs, pranks, hot chocolate, cookies, and warmth. I will cherish those memories forever, and I will not let what happened erase how special our home was or how much those memories meant to me.
Bethany Funk's impact statement was read by a friend. Not because Bethany didn't have words, but because some words require distance to deliver. When you've lived through something that shattered your sense of safety, when you've carried trauma that rewired your nervous system, when you've spent years trying to rebuild a self that was broken, sometimes you need someone else to carry your testimony into the room. The friend who read Bethany's words became a messenger of trauma. They had to articulate suffering on behalf of someone they cared about. This is how grief spreads outward. It ripples through everyone connected to the immediate victims. And then Dylan Mortensen stood, the roommate who had seen a masked figure in her house that night. The woman who had lived with questions and guilt and the burden of survival for 2.5 years. For the first time publicly, she was ready to speak.
Next is Dylan Mortensen. We're asking for some accommodations for Miss Mortensen and that she be allowed to sit in my seat.
Sure. Dylan, just take your time, all right?
Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. What happened that night changed everything. Because of him, 4 beautiful, genuine, compassionate people were taken from this world for no reason. He didn't just take their lives. He took the light they carried it into every room. He took away how they made everyone feel safe, loved, and full of joy. He took away the ability for me to tell them that I love them and that I'm so proud of them. He took away who they were becoming and the futures they were going to have. He took away birthdays, graduations, celebrations, and all the memories that we were supposed to make. All of it is gone. And all the people who loved them are just left to carry that weight forever. He didn't just take them from the world. He took them from me, my friends, my people who felt like my home, the people I looked up to and adored more than anyone. He took away my ability to trust the world around me. What he did shattered me in places I didn't know could break. I was barely 19 when he did this. We had just celebrated my birthday at the end of September. I should have been figuring out who I was. I should have been having the college experience and starting to establish my future. Instead, I was forced to learn how to survive the unimaginable. I couldn't be alone. I had to sleep in my mom's bed because I was too terrified to close my eyes. Terrified that if I blinked, someone might be there. I made escape plans everywhere I went. If something happens, how do I get out? What can I use to defend my? Who can help? And then there are the panic attacks. The kind that slam into me like a tsunami out of nowhere. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking. All I can do is scream because the emotional pain and the grief is too much to handle. My chest feels like it's caving in. Sometimes I drop to the floor with my heart racing, convinced something is very wrong. It's far beyond anxiety. It's my body reliving everything over and over again. My nervous system never got the message that it is over, and it won't let me forget what he did to them. People call me strong. They say I'm a survivor, but they don't see what my new reality looks like. They don't see the panic attacks, the hypervigilance, the exhaustion, the way I scan every room I enter. The way I flinch at sudden sounds. They don't know how heavy it is to carry so much pain and still be expected to keep going, and that's because of him. He stole parts of me I may never get back. He took the version of me who didn't constantly ask, what if it happens again? What if next time I don't survive? He may have shattered parts of me, but I'm still putting myself back together. Piece by piece, I'm learning how to live in this new version of life. It is not easy. It hurts, but I'm still trying. Still trying, and I'm not trying just for me. I'm trying for them, my friends. About a year ago, I had a dream about them. I got to say goodbye. I told them I won't be able to see you again, so I need to tell you goodbye. They all kept asking why, and all I could say was, I can't tell you, but I have to. When I woke up, I felt shattered and heartbroken, but also strangely grateful. Like maybe in some way that dream gave us the goodbye we never got. Still, no dream can replace them, and no goodbye will ever feel finished. He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil. He feels nothing. He tried to take everything from me. My friends, my safety, my identity, my future. He took their lives, but I will continue trying to be like them, to make them proud. Living is how I honor them. Speaking today is to help me find some sort of justice for them. And I will never let him take that from me. He may have taken so much from me, but he will never get to take my voice. He will never take the memories I had with them. He will never erase the love we shared, the laughs we had, or the way they made me feel seen and whole. Those things are mine. They are sacred, and he will never touch them. I get to feel sadness. I get to feel rage. I get to feel joy even when it's hard. I get to feel love even when it hurts. I get to live. And while I will still live with this pain, at least I get to live my life. He will stay here, empty, forgotten, and powerless.
Dylan, thank you so much for your courage.
This was the moment Dylan chose to reclaim her voice. After years of scrutiny and invasive questions, after carrying a story that others felt entitled to judge, she stood in that courtroom and spoke her truth. We don't know exactly what she said. Those words belonged to her. But we know she used her voice. We know she looked at the person who destroyed her sense of safety and refused to let that destruction be the final word. Speaking doesn't undo trauma or bring back the lost, but it's an act of reclamation, saying, I am still here. My voice matters. You took so much, but not everything. Olivia Goncalves, Kaylee's older sister, had been close to both Kaylee and Madison. She had lost two people she loved in one night, and she had something to say directly to the person responsible.
Hello, I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Olivia, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Goncalves, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogen as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief, I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were two pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. I'm left shouting at the inside of my own head everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them. And not even death could change that. Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across. What would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment, my wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love. As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down. And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. Which do you regret more? returning to the crime.
Olivia didn't speak to the court. She spoke to Bryan Kohberger. She made eye contact. She made sure he heard every word. And he maintained eye contact with her as she called him a sociopath, as she told him that no one was scared of him, that no one was impressed, that no one thought he was important. The courtroom erupted in applause when she finished, because she had done something powerful. She had refused to let him be the center of the story. She had redirected focus back to the victims, back to Kaylee Jade, back to Maddie May, back to Xana, back to Ethan. This is what impact statements do at their best. They're not about the defendant. They're about reclaiming narrative. They're about saying, you do not get to define what this means. You do not get to be the main character in this story. The people you took from us, they're who we remember. They're who we talk about. You are footnote to their lives, not the other way around. Ben Mogen had to speak about a daughter who had already completed all the requirements for her degree. A daughter whose future was right there, tangible, ready to begin. And it was gone.
Now it's Ben Mogen, Maddie Mogen's father.
I'm Benjamin Mogen. I'm Maddie's dad. And first I just want to say thanks to all the people that helped bring this all to a close. I know it's not the resolution that everyone wanted, but I think that that everyone worked so hard, and we really appreciate all their efforts. It was such a hard thing to go through for everybody. Maddie was my only child that I ever had. She's the only great thing I ever really did, and the only thing I was really ever proud of. And I thought we would have the rest of our lives together to be together and to know each other, and I took for granted the times, she was in college, and I thought, oh, well, we'll have the rest of our lives to do all the stuff that we're supposed to do, and she was just about done. She actually earned all of her credits for her college degree, and Karen and Scotty and I got to go and get her diploma that she actually earned, and she served every bit of that. And but I thought that was going to be just the beginning of a long life together, and we never got that. Karen and Scotty did such a great job raising her after Karen and I split up, and I'm so thankful for Scotty and the role that he played in her life when I wasn't able to. But we got to spend a lot of great times together, Maddie and I. She was my favorite person to go to a concert with. We got to see some fun shows together, and I told her, if there's ever a show that you want to go to, let me know, and I'll get you tickets for you and your friend, or if we want to go together, we'll make it happen. And my favorite memory with her was when the Mac Miller show sold out here in Spokane, and everyone wanted tickets, no one could get them, and on the last day before the show, they did a radio thing, and I got 4 meet and greet tickets for Maddie and her friends, and me to go and see the show, and that was her favorite artist at the time was Mac Miller, and he's gone now too. And my little cousin Zach drove us all there that night, and he's gone too, tragically. And anyway, the last thing that she ever wrote to me was this Father's Day card, and I'm so glad I still have it. I'm just going to read what she said. It says, "Happy Father's Day. I hope you have the best day. I can't wait till we can hang out again soon. I'll be in Coeur d'Alene, 624 to 74. Hopefully we can find a time then. I loved your birthday card that you sent me, by the way. Maybe we can see a concert sometime soon. I'd love to see the gorge when it's not so smoky out. I hope you're doing well. I'm proud of how far you've come. Thank you for always encouraging me to do my best. Love you lots and lots. Love, Maddie May." She did encourage me to not just to do my best, but to live on. I went through a lot of issues with addiction and with substance abuse, and when I wasn't wanting to live anymore, she was what would keep me from just not caring anymore, and knowing that she was out there and that she was just such a beautiful person kept me alive a lot of rough moments, and I'm so glad that she was able to meet Jake. He was the only one that I actually ever got to take her to the gorge. They went and saw Watershed together, and yeah, they had a heck of a time. I'm glad she got to. That's a really special place for me, and she always wanted to work out there with me in the summer sometime. And she never got to, but at least she got to see it once with Jake. He was such a great guy. He is such a great guy. And I really wanted to see what a future with them would have looked like. I'll never be able to replace her. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I just don't know what to say right now. It's that I just miss her so much, and I just love her more than anything. And this shouldn't have happened. And a death sentence is one thing. When it's going to happen, and it's going to be all gentle and stuff. But, life without parole, with a building full of people that all just want you to not be around anymore, and winking at every morning, not knowing if that's the day they're going to pull your card. I mean, it's not a very nice sentence either. So, I don't know. I just love you, Maddie, and I wish you were still here.
Then Mogen wiped his eyes as he spoke. He talked about Madison's accomplishments, her plans, the life she should have had. He talked about the absence that now defined his family's existence. Every holiday, every milestone, every moment when he reaches for his phone to call her before remembering she's not there to answer. This is the mathematics of loss. It's not just the moment of death. It's every moment after. Every birthday that won't be celebrated. Every graduation that won't happen. Every grandchild that won't exist. Every ordinary Tuesday when you think of something she would have found funny, and the grief hits you all over again because you can't share it with her. Xana Kernodle spoke about her younger sister Xana, remembering her as kind and funny as everyone's best friend. Jeff Kernodle, Xana's father, shared something that haunts him. On the night of the murders, he had been just 7 miles from the house. He thought about driving over, but he'd been drinking, so he decided against it. He lives with that what if. He knows rationally it wouldn't have changed anything. But rationality doesn't silence the questions that come at 3 in the morning. Steve Goncalves, Kaylee's father, turned and addressed Kohberger directly. He told him they were there to finish what Kohberger had started. He called him a complete joke. He emphasized that when people talked about this case, they talked about Kaylee Jade, Maddie May, Xana, and Ethan. Not about him. Christy Goncalves, Kaylee's mother, also spoke directly to Kohberger. So did other family members. So did friends. For 3 hours, more than a dozen people stood and translated their pain into language for the first time in a formal setting. These weren't speeches. They were attempts. Attempts to put into words something that resists language. Attempts to make the court understand the magnitude of what was lost. Attempts to reclaim some small measure of control in a situation where control was taken from them. Throughout all of this, Bryan Kohberger sat and listened. When the judge asked if he wanted to address the court, he declined. "I respectfully decline," he said. Those were among the only words he spoke that day. No explanation. No expression of remorse. No answer to the question that everyone wanted answered. Why? Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson acknowledged this in his remarks. The law doesn't give the court or prosecutors the power to require specific factual explanation as part of a plea deal. They could have refused to move forward without it, but Kohberger could have simply refused and gone to trial. The plea agreement guaranteed he would never leave prison. That was the certainty prosecutors chose. But it left families in the dark. Moscow Police Chief Anthony Dowlinger said they had looked for a connection between Kohberger and the victims, social media contact, anything that would explain why these 4 people became targets. They found nothing. A fellow teaching assistant at Washington State University, where Kohberger had been pursuing his PhD in criminology, told investigators that Kohberger liked to discuss his area of study, which was criminal decision-making and burglary-type crimes. Kohberger had also talked frequently about wanting a girlfriend. The teaching assistant noticed injuries on Kohberger's face and hands on 2 separate occasions in October and November 2022, though he couldn't remember the exact dates. The investigation that led to Kohberger's arrest was itself a landmark case in forensic science. Investigators used investigative genetic genealogy, accessing ancestral DNA databases, including GeneMatch and MyHeritage. This technique, which had been used successfully in cases like the Golden State Killer investigation, involves comparing crime scene DNA to public genealogy databases to identify potential family connections. The FBI found a match with 250 shared centimorgans of DNA, indicating a close relative. From there, traditional detective work narrowed the field until Bryan Kohberger emerged as the primary suspect. This raised important legal questions that would resonate far beyond Idaho. Some DNA samples in these databases came from people who had not explicitly opted into law enforcement searches, conflicting with Justice Department policy. The defense argued this violated constitutional rights. After extensive legal briefing, the judge ruled that law enforcement's use of the technique did not violate Kohberger's constitutional rights. This ruling has implications extending far beyond this case, setting precedent for how genetic genealogy can be used in future investigations nationwide. The investigation moved quickly once Kohberger was identified. Authorities discovered he was a PhD student at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, less than 8 miles from Moscow. He was studying criminology with a focus on criminal decision-making and burglary-type crimes. The irony was not lost on anyone. Here was someone studying the very field that would now be used to investigate him. When authorities began monitoring Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania before the arrest, they observed behavior designed to avoid forensic detection. He was seen multiple times wearing surgical gloves and placing trash bags inside a neighbor's garbage can rather than his own. These items were sent to the Idaho State Lab for testing. In isolation, this might seem eccentric. In context, it suggested someone who understood forensic science and was attempting to avoid leaving evidence. Newly released documents showed that when Kohberger was arrested at his parent home on December 30th, 2022, authorities found him in the kitchen at approximately 1:30 in the morning, wearing examination gloves and putting trash into separate Ziploc bags. When officers introduced themselves during his first interview, Kohberger told them that Moscow Police Corporal Brett Payne looked familiar. He expressed worry about his parents and his dog. For most of the interview, officers engaged in small talk. When they finally asked if he wanted to talk about the murders, Kohberger replied, "Well, I think I would need a lawyer." When pressed further, he reiterated that he wanted an attorney. That ended the conversation. An inmate housed in the cell next to Kohberger's at the Lada County Jail provided disturbing details about his behavior while awaiting trial. The inmate reported that Kohberger washed his hands dozens of times throughout the day and would spend up to an hour at a time in showers. He barely slept, staying awake most nights and only taking brief naps during the day. He would pace and shift restlessly throughout the night, which annoyed his neighboring inmate. Despite this apparent anxiety, Kohberger maintained daily contact with his mother, speaking with her for hours via video call while in jail. These are details. They're behaviors. They paint a picture of someone dealing with extreme anxiety or obsessive tendencies, someone methodical in his attempts to control his environment even from a jail cell. But they don't answer why. And perhaps why is a question that has no answer that would satisfy us. Perhaps there is no explanation that would make sense of senseless violence. Perhaps the search for motive is itself a way we try to organize chaos into something we can comprehend, even when comprehension isn't actually possible. After 3 hours of impact statements, after families had spoken their pain into the record, the judge prepared to deliver the sentence. This is the moment when the legal system attempts to provide closure, a word that means something different to everyone in that room.
All right, does the defense have evidence to present today?
No evidence.
All right. Does the defense wish to make argument today?
Runner, we do not wish to make arguments. Mr. Kohberger, along with his legal team, is prepared for the court to enter judgment.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
Well. Please. All right, let me start this morning by acknowledging and thanking those that have come here today in support of their loved ones, and I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I hope that you are able to move on as best as possible. Thank counsel for the professionalism that they've exhibited throughout this case. It has been my great honor to preside in this case and to help bring, to the extent possible, some resolution and hopefully justice to this case. During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. Who committed this unspeakable evil was unknown for several weeks, but due to the killer's incompetence and outstanding police work by numerous local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, the person that slithered through that sliding glass door at 1122 King Road now stands before the world and this court unmasked. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss. No parent should ever have to bury their child. This is the greatest tragedy that can be inflicted upon a person. Parents who took their children to college in a truck filled with moving boxes had to bring them home in hearses lined with coffins. The loss this killer inflicted was not just the death of these people's children, siblings, grandchildren, as we've heard today, it has ripped a hole in their soul, destroying a special part of their very essence. Any person who is a parent defines themselves foremost as such. It is their existence and purpose of being. And it has been stolen from these parents. None of us have experienced the loss these victims have in the unspeakable way that they have. And therefore, none of us can, nor should we, question the way in which they have handled their loss. Whether that be in private mourning, removed as far as possible from this media circus, or in front of a camera demanding retribution with the loudest megaphone. I've listened intently to the stories and pain that have been shared today, with great awe at the courage and resilience of the surviving family members of those wonderful children. I've listened also to the surviving roommates, both in person and through their friends. And I can't think of how, frankly, courageous they have been despite the hell that they have faced by uncaring people who have come up with all kinds of crazy theories about two kids simply being kids. The parents, siblings, and other family members who have spoken today are designated as victims in our legal system. But going forward, I hope that they can shed that label, as it gives too much power to the evil that condemned them to that role. They are and should be known as survivors, fighters, and foremost as witnesses to the tremendous lives of value and unbounded promise of these four young people. But those speaking today and those who did not speak, but who carry the same burden, this same loss, now carry forward the memories of these now perpetually young people, these forever children. These survivors carry the responsibility of ensuring that the voices of these children, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, are never forgotten, and the positive impacts that they have had on so many lives are never minimized, and that the love they shared, the light that they shined onto others, is forever celebrated. As we sit here today, this case is ending, and we are now certain who committed these unspeakable acts of evil, but we don't know, and what we may never know is why. I share the desire expressed by others to understand the why. But upon reflection, it seems to me, and this is just my own opinion, that by continuing to focus on why, we continue to give Mr. Kohberger relevance. We give him agency and we give him power. The need to know what is inherently not understandable makes us dependent upon the defendant to provide us with a reason, and that gives him the spotlight, the attention, and the power he appears to crave. Yet even if I could force him to speak, which legally I cannot, how could anyone ever be assured that what he speaks is the truth? Do we really believe, after all of this, he's capable of speaking the truth or of giving up something of himself to help the very people whose lives he destroyed? Rather, I suspect the so-called reason would be dished out in enticing, self-serving, and aggrandizing untruthful bits, leaving people wanting more information, more insight, and thus enhancing even further the power he seeks to hold. Even if we could get truthful insight into his why, I suspect it would not in any way quench one's thirst for actually understanding why in the first instance.
Cement 12. Court video of Bryan Kohberger's sentencing. Judge Stephen Hippler acknowledged that Kohberger's motive may never be known. He sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences on the 4 first-degree murder counts, plus the maximum penalty of 10 years on the burglary count. He ordered Kohberger to pay a combined fine of $250,000, $50,000 per count, and $20,000 in combined restitution, $5,000 per victim. Remand the defendant to the Idaho Department of Corrections, where he will remain until the day he dies, the judge concluded. And just like that, the legal case was over. Bryan Kohberger would be transferred to the Idaho Maximum Security Institution in Kuna, just 11 miles from the courtroom where he was sentenced. The facility, which opened in 1989 to confine Idaho's most disruptive male residents, houses up to 549 inmates, mostly in close custody and segregated from others. Its security includes a double perimeter fence reinforced with razor wire and an electronic detection system. You'll die there. That is now certain. But certainty in sentencing is not the same as closure. The families leave that courtroom with answers to some questions and none to others. They have legal finality. They know Kohberger will never walk free. They know justice, by the system's definition, has been served. But they don't have their loved ones back. They don't have the futures that were stolen. They don't have explanations for why this happened to these 4 people on this particular night. They don't have peace. The system closes a case. Life does not. So what are we supposed to do with all of this? How do we process a case that began with unimaginable violence and ended with legal resolution but no real answers? We're left with questions that extend beyond this case. We're left wondering how often we share space with people whose private realities would terrify us. We're left understanding that cameras record everything and understand nothing. That meaning is assigned after the fact. We're left recognizing that survival is an ongoing condition that changes entire lives. We're left knowing that trauma doesn't end when the threat leaves. That memory evolves. That speaking later doesn't mean knowing later. It means finally being able to breathe enough to speak. That grief spreads outward, touching everyone connected. We're left understanding that the justice system can provide legal closure but cannot provide emotional resolution. That sentencing is stillness, not peace. That family can have answers and still search for meaning. And perhaps most importantly, we're left with the recognition that time is the true antagonist. Time reveals, delays, distorts, and haunts. Justice moves forward in months and years. But grief stays suspended in that single moment when everything changed. November 13th, 2022 will always be the day their world ended. July 23rd, 2025 is when the legal system said it was finished. But for the families, survivors, and community, there is no finish line. There is only the long work of learning to carry what cannot be set down. On the 3-year anniversary of the murders, University of Idaho students gathered at the Vandal Healing Garden and Memorial and held a moment of silence to honor Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. This is what we do in the face of senseless loss. We gather. We remember. We speak their names. Kaylee, who had her future waiting in Austin. Madison, who had earned her degree. Xana, who was everyone's best friend. Ethan, whose light-hearted spirit filled every room. They were not defined by how they died. They are remembered for how they lived. That is what we're left with. Not answers, not closure, but the commitment to remember. The refusal to let tragedy be the final word. The understanding that even when the legal system moves on, even when headlines fade, the people who love them are still here, still grieving, still learning to live in a fundamentally different world. This is the dark trail we've walked together today. Not a trail that leads to neat conclusions or satisfying explanations, but one that asks us to sit with discomfort, to honor complexity, to recognize that some questions don't have answers, and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply bear witness to pain that resists easy categorization. Thank you for walking this trail with me. If this story affected you, if it made you think differently about justice, about trauma, about the nature of closure, then please share it. And remember to subscribe to Dark Trail Files, where we don't just tell true crime stories. We examine the human condition in its darkest and most complex moments. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and remember that behind every case are real people whose lives matter far more than the crimes committed against them. This is Dark Trail Files, signing off.